And welcome, Hoosier fans, to this week's edition of Assembly Call Radio, where each week we discuss the most urgent topics in the world of Indiana basketball. This is our 159th edition of Assembly Call Radio, and it is our 595th episode overall of the Assembly Call, recorded on the evening of Thursday, March 5th, 2020. I am your host, Jerod Morris. And let's begin this edition of the Assembly Call how we begin every edition of the Assembly Call, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment.
And Indiana is the national champion.
When it comes down, Indiana will be champion.
Smart takes the shot.
The Hoosiers have won the national championship.
This week's banner moment occurred for me on Wednesday night, a few hours after the final buzzer had sounded on Indiana's 72-67 victory over Minnesota. It was victory number 19 on the season, one that most bracketologists think makes an NCAA tournament appearance probable for the Hoosiers. After hosting the postgame show, listening to Archie's press conference, and reflecting on the victory, it hit me how happy I was for the players, the coaches, and their families. Yes, the families too. Having grown up as the son of a college football coach, I know firsthand how important of a role spouses, parents, extended family, and friends play. These folks often live, breathe, sweat, smile, and cry just as much as their loved ones who are actually in the arena. I know how happy and relieved they must have felt on Wednesday night because there was a lot of pressure on Indiana to win that game, and they did. And it was an important win for a team that is undoubtedly improving down the stretch. On February 19th, Indiana was 47th in KenPom and 16-9 overall. 2 weeks later, IU was 36th in KenPom and has a home game Saturday for win number 20 on the season. Are there glaring imperfections with this team that frustrate us every single game? Yes. But it's so rewarding to watch guys fight through adversity, stick together, and take care of business, which is what Indiana has done all season. The Hoosiers have lost only one game all season long that wasn't a Tier A game, and even that was to a top 50 team. Look, the program still has a long way to go to fulfill the long-term vision Fred Glass laid out when he hired Archie, and progress has come slower than we all expected. But here's the bottom line. This season already represents a third straight step forward in the Archie Miller era, with a whole lot of basketball still to play. I'm excited to see what this group can do down the stretch, and these last 5 performances should give us all legitimate hope that Archie and the boys still have some more winning to do. Our team here at the Assembly Call definitely looks forward to supporting them for as many games as they have left, and I'm sure you feel the same way. All right, now let me introduce my esteemed co-host for this week's show. Andy Bottoms is off tonight. He is spending his time how he usually does on these evenings early in March, reviewing other bracketologists' projections and cackling with laughter whenever they differ from his own.
These guys are real-life idiots.
Yes, they are, Andy, especially compared to you and Coach. But here with me tonight, to my left, it is the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and in place of his theme music tonight, based on popular demand, a Twitter poll that I just put out moments before we started here, we are going to relive 25 glorious seconds from his rant during the AC After Dark portion of the Purdue postgame show. Hit it.
People can mischaracterize this all they want. But when you show up in the chat room and you say, we lost this game because the coaching staff is totally incompetent after winning 2 games and getting Khristian Lander, you really show your ass. You can mischaracterize that all you want, chat mobbers. But you show your ass when you say totally incompetent. You can say something is wrong, you didn't like his game plan, you didn't like his timeout, but you show your ass when you do that. That's just not right. And that comes from a coach.
Coach, people love that rant. That is going to get a lot of play on future episodes of the Assembly Call, I have a feeling. It's Tonsoni time. What's on your mind?
Wow, sometimes you just say things and then you got to live with them for the next, 3 months or whatever. It
was like 11:30 at night, I think. We were all tired and cranky.
You should make T-shirts out of that rant, like just like a front and then put the whole thing on the back.
The next home field apparel shirt. You show your ass.
Yeah, put me on the front and then that on the back, and
let's do it, Jerod. We got to work it out for us.
We actually should do that.
And because of that rant, and Jerod, you said, everyone involved in the program works so hard, and it's nice when they can get some success. And it's not where we want it to be yet at 19-10, and the 3-year run has taken a lot longer than I thought, and you've said it, and a lot of our fans feel the same way. But it looks more and more like we are going to go dancing, and I think that's a step in the right direction. And as we'll talk tonight about a really good recruit coming in, that's also in the right direction. And I couldn't get enough IU stuff on tonight because it's a happy time right now. It's not a great happiness, but it's a lot better than what it could be. And I was really pleased as I rewatched the game, busy coaching and scouting for our section. I didn't get to see the game live. But the aggressiveness of Rob Phinisee, the ability to get the ball into the post in a variety of different ways, some ball screens and some screens and the curls. And there's some things that have changed throughout the season. So everyone, players and coaches and everyone in there is trying to make this better. And that's also something that I believe is good to see. So right now, a lot of happiness, and hopefully – in a few 10 days or so, we get to see it on the screen and get to see it in the brackets that we all try to fill out.
Absolutely. All right, and to my right, he is a senior writer for The Big Lead. He is Race Thompson's official West Coast hype man, and he recently inspired this YouTube comment. Jerod, seriously, can you not do something about Phillips' interruptions? 4 question marks. No, Jimmy31965, I can't. I've been trying for 9 years.
Analyzing players, finding every wrinkle. He hasn't ever hosted, never lifted a finger. He's got all the answers.
Well, let me quickly add just one thing about this.
Dude just interrupted his own jingle.
Sometimes I'm having a bad day, and I listen to that song of you interrupting your own jingle, and it makes me smile every single time. Ryan, what is your rant on the last week in IU basketball?
I have one role on this show, and it's to interrupt. So no, Jimmy, that's not changing anytime soon. I think that the thing that got lost, obviously I wasn't on the show last night, but the thing that got lost in a lot of the discussion after the game wasn't just, Joey Brunk sort of rebounding and having a really good game and showing that he can still be an effective part of this team, which was great to see. And after the first half, I kind of chastised him. I thought that, he really wasn't finishing well around the hoop, and he hasn't been for 6 weeks. Turns around in the second half, does really well. I am happy to play the reverse jinx on that. But what I thought was really interesting, and I'm sure you guys mentioned it, I haven't had a chance to go back and listen to the show yet, but all 5 starters in double figures. And if you get that, I texted you this earlier, Jerod, it's if you get that game from Al Durham, Justin Smith, and Rob Phinisee, you'll take that every single night. Forget scoring 15, 20. If you get 11 from Rob, where he's got 6 rebounds and 5 assists and only 2 turnovers. You get 11 from Al and an aggressive mindset where he has 4 assists as well. You'll take that every time. And Justin Smith just picking his spots and going 4 of 6 from the field. And he took 1 3, which fine. I'm fine with 1 a game. If you make it, great, shoot it again. If you don't, stop, and Justin being aggressive. And you saw the times that he scored, he gets into the lane. His shoulders are facing the hoop. He's going towards the hoop as opposed to fading away, which we've seen so much from him this year. Sort of just leaning back and fading away and not being aggressive. That wasn't him last night. He was attacking when he did get the chance, but he also picked his spots. He wasn't just dribbling into crowds. He picked his spots, made some nice cuts. And then Durham can finish around the hoop when he drives hard and he's focused on finishing and not just getting fouled. He hit 2 threes. Rob Phinisee missed a couple threes. I didn't have a problem with any of the ones he took. He got fouled on one of them. And then when he's aggressive and he's looking to finish, he can score from all kinds of angles. He's a really good finisher when he's actually driving in aggressively with a mindset to finish. And you saw him from the opening tip last night really be more aggressive. And the thing is, when Indiana's multifaceted like that, and it's not just waiting for Trayce Jackson-Davis to do something, this is actually a really good team. And it's a team that can beat some teams. And we've seen them beat some teams. Over the last couple months, it seemed like it had to be Trayce Jackson-Davis and one other guy doing something on offense, whether it was Devontae Green exploding for a game or Race Thompson getting some big buckets or, Al Durham hitting some shots. It just felt like it was Trayce and somebody else to do something. Last night, the whole team contributed, and it was the first time in a while, and I think that was huge, considering it was a must-win game and there's a lot of pressure, and considering that there's a really big challenge awaiting in Wisconsin in the final regular season game. So These guys have to continue to build on that. This can't be a one-off. If they want to make some noise, if they want to finish the season strong and then go into that Big Ten tournament, I don't care where we're seated in the Big Ten tournament. They play like that, they can win a couple games. The question is, will they do it? Can they build on it? And the same goes for Joey Brunk. I know he was obviously a big talking point, but can he build on that? Or is that a one-off performance against a Minnesota team that has some struggles right now? It's about the consistency. And about everybody being a threat. That's what a team is, as opposed to just Trace Jackson Davis wowing us with some other guys picking up the slack.
Yeah. All right, here's what we're going to talk about this week. Andy gave you his bracketology update last night. We'll get coach's perspective on it, and then we're going to do a quick IU-Wisconsin preview because that game is coming up Saturday. And then the long-awaited Khristian Lander scouting report. It feels like he committed 2 months ago. It was a week and a half ago, but we haven't had an episode of Assembly Call Radio since then. So Ryan has pages full of notes, and he's going to talk to us about what he sees in Khristian Lander. And then we got a bunch of questions from you guys, and so we're going to answer those as well. All of that coming this week on Assembly Call Radio. Before we get to all of that, I just want to issue a quick reminder from our friends at Home Field. They just put out a new shirt. Did you guys see the new shirt they put out today?
Yes.
With that script Hoosiers?
No,
They have the script Indiana. This is from, I don't know if Chris is in the chat. He can confirm, but I think it was from like 1970 or 1971 shooting shirts that they had, I think, that Indiana had. It was a script Hoosiers. It is awesome. So I will definitely be getting that, but go to homefieldapparel.com because they have that shirt. They've got another really cool design, kind of like a 90s style design, and then, of course, all of the other great classic designs that they have there. Go to homefieldapparel.com, or if you just want to go to the IU collection, you can always use the URL homefieldiu.com. That'll take you right there, and then use that promo code assembly20. Assembly20, that'll give you 20% off your entire order. But definitely check out that new Hoosiers logo because it is really, really cool. Homefieldiu.com. Okay. Let's start. Coach Jeff, our buddy Jeff Marlowe from the community, he asked the question everybody's thinking: where do you think IU currently sits in regard to the NCAA tournament? What do you and the Delphi bracketology team think right now?
See Indiana either as a 9 or a 10. We have them as a 9. We put more emphasis on the quality of the resume, and we feel the worst losses to 41 Arkansas. And we just think that speaks well of who you played. Now, those losses have been ugly at times, and if the committee says losing to Michigan like they did and at Maryland, that's indicative of how they play, and that's part of the metrics issue as well, then you could see Indiana maybe be a 10 seed. But when you compare them to the teams around them, Florida, Oklahoma, Arizona State, USC, the wins are better and the losses are better overall. They don't have as many blemishes outside of the top 50 as the other teams. And that's the hard part. I can tell you what I think, but it's those 10 people in the committee room that are really going to make the difference. But I think you'll see Indiana as a 9 or a 10. And I think they're far enough away that bid thieves and some teams making runs that are currently out aren't going to damage Indiana. You do worry about that 11-14 game if they get slotted there, that could hurt with a loss. But let's go win it. But a win against Wisconsin and Indiana's in no matter what.
Yeah. So just try to avoid losing out, obviously, and then if you can beat Wisconsin, then you're playing the Big Ten tournament for seeding, basically. Correct. And it's kind of gravy. So, and if you want to know those scenarios, Michigan beat Nebraska earlier tonight, I think. So that removes that very, very unlikely scenario. So basically, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there's one scenario for Indiana to get out of that Wednesday game. We have to beat Wisconsin. Purdue has to lose at home to Rutgers. If that happens, Purdue's 9-11. We're 10-10, and we are above them. If we're tied, obviously they have the tiebreaker over us. So that's the only way.
The easier path might be to be on the first day. I mean,
also because it would slot us against Iowa potentially with how things look right now. And, facing a Fran McCaffrey team in late February or March is never a bad thing.
You have a chance to pick up the extra victory. I mean, if you're not expecting to win the tournament, you have the chance to pick up the extra victory against Nebraska, if that's how it lines up.
I just don't think that's going to actually do anything for you.
I know, but, it gets you. It might be something. Let's say you lose to Wisconsin. It might get you to 20 wins, and then that looks better than 19, and then you can roll. So I agree. I just think that I've seen a lot of the scenarios where Indiana winds up getting that bye, and the path doesn't look as appealing as to play on that first day, unless you feel like you're going to win it and you need the extra day, for rest or whatever. But I think that it's really not a terrible thing if Indiana plays that first night against a bad team. It can notch another win. We know that wins are important, as we saw last year.
It's not.
And most of the teams are in by the time the tournament starts anyway. It is playing for seeding. It's down to a couple teams that make that deep run, or if Indiana were right in that last four, then those games do become important, and maybe winning a Wednesday game would help. But I think Indiana's safe enough away from that scenario that, unless they just lose twice and everyone else goes crazy, I think it's not a lock, but it's pretty comfortable.
Stephen asks, what does IU have to do to make a run in the Big Ten tournament? End whatever curse is killing us in the Big Ten tournament.
I was going to say not be Indiana.
Here's the hope. Coach Knight came back. That people have speculated that maybe there's a whole Big Ten tournament curse because of, Coach Knight hated the Big Ten tournament and all that stuff. So, it's as good of a hypothesis as any, given our history in the Big Ten tournament. So, no, what needs to happen, he said, who do you think has to step up? I think everything that Ryan talked about needs to happen, and then Devontae needs to go out and make shots for a few days in a row. And if that happens, we can make a run. All right, guys, let's talk real quick about Wisconsin. What an interesting season they have had. They were 6-6, and they've had addition by addition, and it seems like addition by subtraction, because Micah Potter, who was a transfer, who did not play in that first game, has come back and been outstanding for them. He's using almost 30% of possessions. He's grabbing 30% of the defensive rebounds when he's on the court. He's really efficient. He has been really good. And then Kobe King obviously transferred. He was their leading scorer in Big Ten play, and that hasn't hurt him at all because they have won 7 games in a row. Now, it's worth noting that in this win streak for Wisconsin, they've beaten Nebraska, they've beaten Northwestern, they've beaten Minnesota, and they beat Rutgers at home. Which, look, you have to win those games, and obviously winning 7 games in a row at any time in the Big Ten is impressive, but it's not like they've gone up against a murderer's row. And I say that just to say, yeah, they've won 7 in a row, but this has been maybe one of the softer schedule, runs of teams you can get in Big Ten play. So they're going to be really good, though, and they've beaten good teams on the road. They have veteran guards. They shoot a lot of threes. They make a lot of threes. Coach, what do you think are the keys? Besides the obvious stuff when you play a home game, what are going to be the keys for Indiana to beat Wisconsin Saturday?
Well, I think they have to keep playing solid defense, and the matchups have to be really watched. There's concern with the post players and guarding Wisconsin's action and what happened in the first game, and that's going to be key to watch. Who's Joey Brunk going to guard, and can he guard the type of action that Wisconsin is going to put forth? I think that really
hurt them in the first game.
Yeah, I think that's just vital because Wisconsin right now is on a hot streak of shooting, and it's just going to be hard, and they space the floor with their actions, and you've got to be able to cover a lot of people, and you can't overhelp. And so I think they pose an interesting type of style for Indiana at this point, and it's just going to come down to defense, because I think Indiana can score on Wisconsin. I don't think they're like some great defensive team necessarily, but they can't go in those droughts. But to me, it's going to be what kind of defense does IU play collectively, and individually who can win the matchups and at least be 50-50 if there is a tough matchup. So I'm going to be watching to see who guards who and how well or how poor they do early in the first half.
Important to also remember, Rob Phinisee did not play in that game. Armand Franklin started. Demezy Anderson played 20 minutes. So just like Wisconsin's a much different team, we are a much different team now.
It's a different roster, yeah. And look, I think that the key here is the two things that Indiana has struggled against are good three-point shooting when teams just light them up from the perimeter, and then mobile big men who play inside out. And those are two things that they've struggled with. I would expect Race Thompson to get a lot of minutes in this game, even if he's not doing much offensively, just because Nate Reavers is a guy who can step out on the floor and hit a shot. And he did that against them. And Reavers, I think, scored 20 against them in December. And he was the key. He got them started early, and Wisconsin got on a roll, and Indiana never recovered. And Indiana did something that they've done at times, and that is they let a guy get comfortable. They let a team get comfortable shooting. They get into a rhythm, and if that happens at Assembly Hall, that's bad news. If a team gets comfortable shooting at Assembly Hall, that's bad news for Indiana, because Indiana's defense is meant to stop the drive, not meant to stop. They're meant to force players out, and they'll welcome contested jumpers. If you're making contested jumpers against Indiana, especially this time of year, you're more than likely going to win. And so the key for Indiana is to close out to shooters under control without fouling and never let them get comfortable. And that did not happen when they played Wisconsin earlier in the season. And that was a runaway from the very beginning. It felt like a runaway from the very beginning. It just felt like Indiana was never in the game.
Yeah, I agree. Race is going to have to play some. They might have to play small with Justin at the 4 and have Hunter in there to cover some of the action of Wisconsin. And you know, Joey got the game ball and did some good things, but sometimes you're better matched up.
It's a bad matchup.
Games, and then other times it's a bad matchup. It might be a bad matchup, and I might believe that his minutes might be a little limited on Saturday.
Here's what I'll say, though. The problem with having Joey out there, and Joey's going to start. He's started all year. We know that's not going to change, and Archie Miller addressed the starting lineup in his post-game press conference. And what he said,
a great answer, too.
Yeah, it made sense. And here's the thing. You cannot let Reavers get started. And that was what happened in Wisconsin. So he's going to start Joey Brunk. Does he put Trace Jackson-Davis on Reavers when he moves out to the perimeter? Do they do something else? Do they have some help on him? What do they do? And how do they compensate for that? Because Reavers getting going early was what got Wisconsin going early when they played the first time.
And Kobe King scored 24 points that game too, and he won't be there.
He did.
And Indiana's got to get their dudes going. They got to go inside and make Reavers and Potter guard. And, you know, you never can count on foul trouble either, but it is our home court. And, you know, everyone thinks we got a reputation, so let's call it in for one game and get those guys on the bench.
And another key against a team that shoots well, if Indiana, I mean, I'm never going to assume that Indiana's going to light it up from 3. So what they have to do is they have to make their free throws. If they get to the line, they got to make their free throws, because that's a lot of extra points the other team's going to be getting. You need to finish and get some extra points on your end.
Yep, we will have the post-game show for you as soon. It won't be as soon as that game ends. Remember, it is senior day for Devontae Green and Deron Davis, so the post-game show will start after the senior speeches. So just kind of stay tuned to Twitter and all that stuff, and we'll send the link out as soon as we get going. But huge opportunity for Indiana to get win number 20, stop Wisconsin's unexpected march toward a Big Ten title, and just beat those Badgers. I get sick of losing to them too, so let's beat them again at home just like we did last year. All right, coming up, the much-anticipated Khristian Lander scouting report, another huge recruit for Archie Miller from the state of Indiana, a five-star point guard, obviously a position of need. We will assess his strengths and weaknesses and how he fits, whether he comes next year or the year after. Stick with us on the Assembly Call. All right. Hello to everybody watching live.
Howdy. Can you adjust my light?
Good to see you. It's always, Coach, the chat mobs, there's always a big difference in chat mobs on Thursday night to post-game chat mobs. Like the Thursday night folks, this is like the core crew. You know, like you can trust this crew. You're not going to see a whole lot of crazy takes, a lot of negativity. You recognize all the names. And, you know, you recognize the names a lot of times for post-game too, but you get drive-bys like Carrots and some of these other people that come in with their hot takes. It can sometimes be a little wild in the post-game chat mobs.
we just got people like Megan who stay out till 3:30 in the morning and crash where they're not even supposed to be crashing to. That's our kind of people in there. You know,
it is.
We got Mediocre J, but you're absolutely right. No one's going to show their ass on a Thursday. I don't like Carrots. Sorry, Carrots. Dude, this is a true story. I obviously said that in reference to the dude in the chat room, and I don't dislike Carrots, but I haven't had a carrot since that Purdue game. And Mrs. Tonsoni has some stuff in the library, and I went, and all she had was carrots, and I'm like, I'm not eating. I'm on an anti-carrot. I'm not going to have
That's
carrot.
ridiculous.
It might be, but I'm having a conversation with myself. That's ridiculous.
I got so many great drops out of that.
I'm sorry. You show your ass when you do that.
Here, talk amongst yourselves for just a moment. I forgot to switch out my segment intros. I was way behind today, so I need to switch that real quick. You guys can entertain. Tell a story, Ryan. Something exciting has to
story. Something.
Yeah. Talk about Home Field Apparel getting San Diego State. I forgot to mention that. That's exciting.
I didn't even know
that's a
that.
Sweet shirt.
That's awesome. I'll have to check it out. Yeah. I mean, look. Hey, everyone in. Whoa.
Sorry, I know. I gotta get these out. Just bear with me.
We can't talk if you're.
I know. Well, I have it, so I just click on them and then they go. So there's no way for me to stop it. Okay.
I will say, I'm gonna tease the next segment by saying I was incredibly surprised by how. Hold on. What?
I'll say this.
Something for dinner. It's.
Oh, okay.
Hey, look at that.
That's nice.
Well, it's balsamic vinegar, not wine. So.
Oh. I thought that was a nice bottle of wine right there.
For a guy who collects college gear, Home Field's going to force me to get a second job.
I don't want to get the cork stuff.
I mean, I want to get a Hofstra shirt for the NCAA tournament in case Hofstra. Who has Hofstra stuff? Home Field.
That's why they're niche, man. That's why they're smart. That is why I've always felt like kindred spirits with them. Because when we started the Assembly Call, our whole thing was like, let's find a small little niche that we can get into that no one else is doing with a post game show, and that's exactly how they started. That's why this has always been such a good partnership. These guys are great.
Somebody just said I should chug the balsamic vinegar. No, absolutely not. Yeah, I will say San Diego is definitely behind San Diego State, man. They're having a great year. It's fun. They're selling out every game, and this town needs a winner pretty badly.
Yeah, they do.
Do you think they're a 1 coach or a 2?
1.
See, I think they'd prefer to be the West Coast 2.
Yeah.
Right.
They have wins over Creighton and Iowa. They have some wins. Yeah, I think they're better than resume-wise than Dayton. I'm not talking X's and O's, but
sure. Yeah, because the NCAA tournament's not about who's better; it's about the better resume, really.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
and a committee sometimes, if you really look at Gonzaga and San Diego State, there's teams like Seton Hall who have a better resume number-wise, more wins, but they do a good job of saying, the Gonzagas, if you've only lost 1 or 2 games, and San Diego State, you get a pretty good seed, and I think that's fair, as long as there's some meat on the resume.
Well, SDSU was playing Air Force today, and they were behind at halftime because Air Force could not miss. They hit something like they were hitting something like 70% of their shots at the half, and then obviously that evened out.
All right, we ready to talk Lander? Ryan, you have your notes ready? Big pad of paper. Look at all that. Okay.
2 pages.
All right. Let's so I'll just kind of intro it real quick and then we'll hop right into it. And then Coach Ryan wants us to if there are really the questions. Well, okay, so the questions that we got about Lander are really more about, how he might fit with Rob, how he'll fit on the roster. So we can talk about that at the end. But Coach, if you guys have questions in the chat mob for clarification while Ryan's going through this, you can post them and then we'll kind of pop in. Because otherwise, these just become 8-minute long monologues.
Yeah,
Ryan loves. But
I'm fine with you guys breaking it up. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, is the player comp properly noted? I don't really have a good one.
No.
So.
No player comp.
Yeah.
The player comp on 24/7 Sports is De'Aaron Fox, and I'm not a huge fan of that comparison. But
no.
If they get De'Aaron Fox, I'm fine. If he's De'Aaron Fox, I'd be fine with it. But I don't see it.
Okay. Let's do this. Here we go.
What's going on? It's Christian Wofford. What's the only thing better than an epic buzzer beater? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join my guys Jerod, Andy, Ryan, and Coach on the Assembly Call after every IU game. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, Christian. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. You can find all of our content at our website, assemblycall.com. And if you ever want to join the chat mobbers during our unedited live broadcasts or watch those replays and see all of the between segment banner, then check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/assemblycall. All right, I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Ryan Phillips, here with Coach Brian Tonsoni. As we always do when Indiana gets a commitment, it is scouting report time. So if you were, living under a rock, I guess, over the last week and a half, you might have missed that Khristian Lander, basically Indiana's, prime recruiting target since Trace Jackson Davis committed, he surprisingly committed to Indiana. I don't think anybody was really expecting it to happen when it did, but it happened. He is currently in the class of 2021, but obviously the big storyline around him now is, will he reclassify to 2020? And everything you read seems to suggest that he wants to, and they kind of have a plan for it to happen. And so it looks like things are moving in that direction. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed. Ryan asked me before we went on what I thought. I said, just based on kind of stuff you read in here, 70-30, that he will. But it certainly seems like things are moving steadily in that direction. And just to kind of, set the context for where he is a 5-star recruit. Will probably be, well, I guess if he reclassifies, he won't have a chance to be a McDonald's All-American, but certainly a guy who projected to be a McDonald's All-American. And we got a question from someone in the community, where would Lander be as a player if he was in the 2020 class? And so Rivals actually did a really cool set of recruiting rankings where they took all the current prospects and lumped them together into one big rating. So in the class of 2021, Lander was essentially between like 15 and 20, right in there. If you look at that top 100 of all prospects, that's from freshman to senior. So Amani Bates was, number one because he's hailed as like, one of the greatest prospects since LeBron.
The next LeBron, yeah.
Yeah, if you look at that, Lander is 60th overall, and he was 31st among class of 2020 prospects. Now, it's worth saying the list is kind of shaded toward 2020 prospects at the top because they're the better players right now. So it's probably hard, for the guys rating
and
them
people
to
have seen them more,
some of that.
let's be
Yeah.
real.
So, but look, this is a guy who is a top 20 player. He is the number one point guard in the class of 2021. He has the exact pedigree that you're looking for to be, the kind of guard that you build around that Indiana has really needed. So,
let's note
the best ball handling guard prospect since Yogi, obviously, Romeo, a different type of player than him.
Well, let's also note that on 24/7's rankings, which, by the way, I think 24/7 right now is the best scouting service and covers the most area and ranks guys the most accurately, in my opinion, has him as the number 9 player. The composite has him at 11, but has him as the number 9 player in his class. So this is a top 10 national recruit and the best player in Indiana. And by the way, I think he would definitely be the best player in Indiana this year as well. In those rankings. So worth noting that as well. This is, because when you talk about him being top 60 and things like that, I know what you're referencing, and it's all 4 years and all that. But let's re-gauge it to in his class, and if he was in 2020, he'd be the best player in Indiana, and in his class, he's a top 10 guy nationally. So I think that's worth noting as we enter the scouting report.
And as we transition into your scouting report, watching the film, it backs it up. Like, you can see why he's got that ranking, and it seems legitimate. So tell us what kind of player we're getting in Khristian Lander.
So he's about 6'1", 6'2", 165. So obviously, as with all, I start this with every prospect because I have a lot of people who go watch the video and then come at me and say, he needs to get bigger. They all need to get bigger. I mean, he's 17 years old or whatever he is right now. He's going to have to gain probably 15 pounds to be an effective Big Ten player. That's just the reality of it. But again, we've seen what IU's strength and conditioning program can do. That's definitely doable. What surprised me is how small he plays when he has the ball on the perimeter, but how big he plays in close. He's got long arms. He does finish very strong despite being a skinny kid. He could be bodied off the ball in the Big Ten a bit, roughed up. If you see that Purdue style defense that got played against some of our guys, that really bothered some of our guys, that could impact him.
Especially again, if he reclassifies. That's going to be the important thing to keep in mind.
I'm approaching this scouting report as if he will. Okay. So if the guy who is right now comes in next year, he's going to struggle a little bit. He needs to get bigger, needs to get stronger. From a ball handling perspective, he is an outstanding ball handler. He keeps the ball in close. One of the things you see guys get out in front of themselves and dribble away from their body. He does not do that. He can get a low dribble going in the middle. He dribbles through traffic really well. He just has a good sense of where he can put the ball on the floor, making sure it's going to pop back up and hit his hand. He's really surgical with that. He again, dribbles through crowds all the time with no issue. He is very confident with it. He's strong on the ball, against this level of competition right now. The question is, how's he going to be at the next level? That's what we just went over. But he's very strong on the ball now, and he's really difficult to take the ball away from. He has an insane hesitation move that he uses almost all the time, where he pulls back and then springs forward. He is so quick once he decides to go with his drive that it's almost indefensible, and you're going to have to rotate somebody over to help him, which helps because he's got great vision and can give the ball up to somebody else if he gets doubled. You can know that hesitation's coming and you'll still get beat. You could see guys he's playing, waiting for it, and he still gets sucked in. It's almost like swinging at a changeup. You can know, they can tell you the changeup's coming, but you want to look for the fastball. He explodes out of his crossover and gets moving to where he wants to go. When he crosses over, he's going somewhere. He's not just going to cross over for show. He has sort of a plan and a pattern of where he's going. Finishing around the rim, he's a great finisher. The one issue I saw was he finishes with his left all the time. Even when he's on the right side of the floor, he'll finish with his left. And that needs to be altered. He needs to get better with his right hand, because in college basketball, teams are going to key on his left hand and make sure he's left-handed, by the way. So he's finishing with his left hand is his strong hand. But he can finish on lots of weird, strange angles and still find ways to get it in. He can lay it in. He sometimes does a little hop shot thing where he sticks it off the glass. He really knows how to put the ball in the basket. And it's an innate kind of soft touch and feel that he has for the game, which is outstanding. He also, shockingly, because you see this guy and he's kind of smaller in his competition, he can really get up and dunk. And you see him catching alley-oops. I mean, for a 6'1", 160 kid who's about 165, maybe 6'2", he can really get up and dunk. He finishes alley-oops on the break. He will drive by a guy and out of nowhere, you're expecting just an easy lay-in, power jump up and get down and throw the ball down, which is again surprising when you're watching about 5 minutes of footage and then all of a sudden the dunks come and you're very kind of, it's almost shocking how quickly he can get up. I'd love to see him finish with his right hand a little bit stronger. I think that's really an area he has to develop. The big question that I got before doing this was, what about his shot? Can he shoot from the perimeter? Obviously, the idea of a guard who can't shoot gives Indiana fans the shakes these days because it's happened for so long. He has a very low release on his shot. It's finishes about the middle of his head, which is not ideal. You want to finish high on your shot. The positive is he gets it away very quickly. So that's not much of an issue. If you want a comparison from an IU guy who had a shot that finished low, Eric Gordon would be the guy that I would lead you to. He has a very low finish on his shot, but he got it up quickly and he finished well. You know, he had good mechanics. It was just a lower shot. So I don't know if they'll try and alter that, make him finish his shot a little higher, or if they'll just encourage him to get it off quicker. He's a good three-point shooter. He gets really good rotation on the ball. He's a developing shooter. I said good, but developing, and I can see it becoming a good shot. One thing that he does a lot of, though, is he has his lead left leg is out further than his right leg, so he's not square to the hoop. That's an easy fix that they could work on over a summer. And you know, when you have such a talented prospect, coaches are loath to change anything they're doing. Indiana's probably going to want to change that, so he's more square to the hoop. You've seen Al Durham become more square to the hoop this year when he shoots, and it's worked for him. It's gotten better, and you've seen, especially lately, his mechanics are much better because he's more square to the hoop. That's going to be something Khristian's going to have to work on. One thing about his shot that is nice is I mentioned the touch around the basket. His touch on his shot is great as well. He does a lot of pulling up in like the 10 to 15 foot range, and it's just soft on the rim every time. It may not be a perfect shot, but the softness of the touch lets it kind of sometimes rattle in, which is a positive because you're not going to be perfect on every shot, especially at that age. And the ability to just kind of put it on the inside of the rim and let it go in is really a positive. I think that with his shot, though, he does need to take the next step. And it's especially if he's going to be playing in college where everyone's going to be playing off him because he's so quick with his dribble. He's going to need to take that next step as a shooter to just get himself square to the hoop, make sure that release. The other thing he does, he pulls back his release a lot. And that's something that it's kind of showboaty when guys like fire it up and pull their hand back. He needs to keep it up and finish through the shot as opposed to pulling his hand back. I'm sure that drives coach nuts when his guys do that, but
I don't like that.
Yeah. And it's an easy thing to fix too. It's just follow through and pose on your shot every time. as far as athleticism, I mentioned he surprises with his explosion. He doesn't look like he just watching him, because he's not that big and he's not that strong. He doesn't look like he'd be, oh, that's a great athlete. He really does have some explosion to him. His drives, he's lightning quick. His first step is fantastic. And then he's got that ability to really get up around the rim. And that helps him as a rebounder. He's a really good rebounder for a guard. He's got long arms and he gets up quickly and is willing to shield guys. Even when he doesn't have great position, he's able to shield guys and go get the ball. And that's impressive.
The Hoosier Hysteria dunk contest with he and Jordan Geronimo added to it's going to be fun.
Going to be very fun. I will say also that athleticism is going to help him on defense, and that's the next section I've got is defense. Again, he's a willing defender. He goes out, but it's high school defense. He goes after a lot of steals, tries to get in a lot of passing lanes, things like that. But here's the thing: like Romeo Langford, he's never had to be an excellent defender. He's just so much better than everybody else that he can play his own level of defense. Romeo became a good defender, and now he's considered one of the Celtics' defensive stoppers. But that was because they put him.
He was an underrated defender last year, too.
He was. But that's the thing is Archie got him on campus and was able to mold him into a defender like that. Lander has that ability in him for sure. I think that he plays good defense, but you almost feel like it's not enough and there's another gear. But again, he's in high school basketball. He's in AAU basketball. Those are not places where a guy that talented is going to really hone his craft as a defender. I think the tools are definitely there. The key, obviously, because he's a point guard, is passing. And one thing that I saw from him is that he's got outstanding vision where he sees the whole floor. A lot of times you get point guards and they see the floor in quadrants. So if you're driving to the left side, you see the one pass away, the closest pass, you see the next pass, and maybe you see the post, but you don't see what's going on the other side of the floor. That's not Lander. He sees everything, and he is able to deliver pinpoint passes to every quadrant on the floor. And no matter where he is, no matter what he's doing. And he does a lot of times young guys that are again playing AAU or the best player they're gonna face that year. They drive to the rim and look to score every single time, regardless of what happens with doubles or guys coming over or guys challenging him. He goes up and has that basketball sense to know if there's someone closing, there's somebody open, and he finds them. And it's a bummer for a guy like him because the rest of his team is never going to be as good as him. So sometimes he'll make a great pass that doesn't get finished, but that's the job of a point guard, is to find those open guys when you don't have that perfect lane. He's very good at, and I think that is his best attribute, is his ability to get past someone on a drive and know whether or not he's going to be able to finish or whether this guy cutting on the right side or standing out at the 3-point line has the best. He does that calculus in his head very quickly and finds the open guys, and he delivers passes on time. He delivers no-look passes that, while they're no-look passes, don't feel flashy. They feel like what's needed at that time. So whereas some guys you see throw no-look passes to be fancy, it's almost like Lander's doing it because that's the best option. He just has that basketball IQ, and his brain is consistently going. And you can see him sometimes, if you watch some of his highlight videos, he's standing at the top and he's dribbling back and forth, but he's not dribbling back and forth to show off, to go by his guy. He's waiting for something to develop and waiting to see where things will develop. Almost like he's, it's a chessboard and he's trying to figure out how to get the pieces in the right place and where to attack. One thing I also really noticed was a lot of the Indiana Elite footage. He plays very well with Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal. Those guys clearly love playing together, and they know where each other are on the floor at all times. You'll see Leal throwing alley-oops to Lander, and Galloway, setting Leal up, who sets Lander up. I mean, those three know how to play together, and it is a blast to watch. I recommend everybody after the show. I know you're on YouTube. You might be on YouTube watching this, but after the show, go watch those highlights. It's really
I know
fun.
You got me excited to watch some more of this footage. It sounds good.
It's really fun to watch those guys play together. So basically my summary of it is I think that Lander's a winning player. I mean, there were times in AAU games I saw him diving on the floor. I mean, that never happens. But he's a guy who makes winning plays that makes your team better. He does the right things with the ball. He has this sense of when to attack, where to attack, how fast to attack, what to do. He does a lot of step back. He does a decent amount of step back threes and things like that aren't exactly what you want every time, but he makes enough of them that you're not mad about it. And he's a guy who just has this insane feel for the game. And I think, quite frankly, from watching him, I think he's the next great point guard in the Big Ten. I really do. I just think that he's got all the tools you want for a point guard. Obviously, you're projecting in growth there. There are things he's got to get better at. He's got to work on his shot a little bit. He's got to get a little bigger. and he's got to buy in defensively. But if he does those things, there's nothing stopping him from being the next great Big Ten point guard.
Yeah, so we got several questions about him. We were not going to have a time to adjust them in this segment. So if you're listening on the radio and you want to hear that, we're going to talk about it between segments on the YouTube version, so you can get that there. But the one thing I do want to talk about real quick is, look, the description that you gave is apt. This is why he's a 5-star prospect. This is why he's, top 15 player. Like, all the skills and athletic ability are there. The biggest question is going to be if he reclassifies, and this should be a kid who's a senior in high school, what's the maturity level that he brings, to college? Obviously, physically, he's going to be behind, but mentally and emotionally, is he ready? And I would say the one thing that really makes you feel better about it is he's going to be coming in, if he reclassifies, with Trey Galloway and Anthony Leal, who he played with this summer. Like, that
and
would
that might
really help that transition.
And it's worth noting, he's been playing a year up.
Yes.
In AAU ball. So he's been playing with older players for a while. Now he hasn't made the jump to playing against 22-year-olds, in the way it would be in college consistently. But
and expectations should be put in check for that reason. Think back to Yogi's freshman year and all the growth that he needed, and he was ranked around, the same as Lander. Like, there will be ups and downs for a young point guard. But, Coach, you look at him, all the physical tools and all the skills that you would want for a player that age, it's all there.
I would point to a couple things that Ryan said from a coaching perspective and for our listeners. One, instincts. He's got the instincts of when to go, when not to go, when to shoot, when not to shoot. Yes, at times he's at high school, when you got a guy like that, he's probably going to take some shots that are questionable because he's so good and has to.
Yeah.
But you really look at the AAU stuff and his vision and his willingness to pass in AAU. When Ryan said that, and I haven't I've watched a few of his highlights, but if AAU is just get yours for the most part. And when you get a guy who's diving on the floor, and then Jerod said about playing with Leo and Galloway, that if he can reclassify and gets all the credits that he needs and comes in, we do need to be patient with him and making young mistakes and his physicality and some of the shot corrections that, need to be done. But as a coach, you can't coach those instincts and that knack for playing the game and playing the game at that level. Yeah, you can't teach that. And so you'll try to eliminate the struggles, but you can just let him go. And I think what's nice, too, is you have two ball handlers that can play at the same time, and you could almost never have a non-ball handler out there. You could stagger their times with Phinisee. And so I just think that, yes, let's live with the growing pains, but it really excites me to have that level of a guard coming to play IU. And I think it's transition. Archie wants to play a transition game. I think Lander fits that perfectly. I think, directing the offense, he's been struggling getting Phinisee and everyone to run the offense. I think Lander's that guy. If he can accept that role of not just being the lead scorer, which I think he can, but he can really run an offense, I think. And so those things from a coaching perspective are really good to hear.
He's got the mind of a senior. He really does. When you watch the way he breaks down the game, quickly in his mind when he's driving, he reacts to what the defense does, and he's honestly fantastic. I'm really excited to see him in Green Crimson.
Awesome. All right, we are going to talk more about that during the break. So again, if you're listening on the radio, you can listen to the podcast or on YouTube. But when we come back for segment number 3, it is question time. The mediocre question of the week is back, and a bunch of other good ones. So we will answer those next. Stick with us on the Assembly Call. All right, so let me just make note of this real quick. We've got 7 minutes and 2 seconds. I want to get the recording going again so that the podcast folks can listen to us address these Lander questions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about Lander. We just needed to break for the radio show, but there's a little bit more. Well, there's a lot more meat on the bone. But we got a couple of questions about, from Sally, from JD, essentially about how he'll fit with Rob. Is he going to be competing with Rob for minutes? And Sally's premise was basically, do you think it will actually take the pressure off of Rob having a guy like, Khristian Lander there to kind of, help take some of that playmaking load? And then, JD, people have made a lot out of the Lander overlap with Rob in terms of playing time. Again, do you think that could even be better for Rob to have someone push him, someone for him to mentor? So, Coach, as you look at that, because to me, I mean, obviously they're undersized, and you still project to have a guy like Al Durham around. You still project to have a guy like Armand Franklin around. So, I mean, you're going to have some options there. But Khristian Lander also isn't coming here and reclassifying to sit on the bench the entire game. Like he's coming here. He's going to play. He's going to play 15, 20 minutes a game. Like even if he's struggling as a freshman, he is going to play. And, we certainly project some improvement from Rob. But I think those two guys can play together at times. But I also think, you stagger them some with Al, especially with what Al is showing as a two guard over these last few weeks. I think you can have a nice rotation and see those two guys play together because Rob can play off the ball and make shots, and Khristian can do that too. So you can finally have like a legit lineup where you have two ball handlers, which seems like the greatest luxury of all that we just haven't had very often.
I look forward to them playing together as much as possible. I do think you stagger them as far as their rest so that you have one of the two out there at all times unless there's foul trouble. Defensively, we got to see what he can do. It's different. College is so different than even the highest levels of high school and AAU with all the schemes and the scouting and all of that stuff. But some of the struggles have been our guards have been giving up penetration, and we've been forced to play big. Maybe this with the wings coming in, Geronimo and Leo and Galloway, and you have Hunter developing some more and Race Thompson, that you can play a little smaller. And not the two traditional bigs and have to throw that ball into the post. You could see maybe a fundamental shift in the offense as well. But I think those two are going to play together. I don't think it's a challenge to Rob's minutes. I think Rob has, at his best, which is mostly his second half of his freshman year, has demonstrated that he can do some things offensively and he can really do some things defensively, especially like against a guy like Cassius Winston, that – I think you'll see them play a lot. And maybe Al comes in at the 3 or Al comes off the bench and can spot those guys. But the competition level is going to arise with more guys of the same type of play and mentality. So I don't think it's a threat to Rob at all. I think they can
make life easier on him.
Have the same amount of minutes. Yeah. And he can relax a little bit too. He doesn't have to be the only one that can run the offense and run the fast break, and then when he goes out, the offense kind of gets stagnant at times.
I mean, look, ideally by next year, Rob is the guy that you pencil in for 35 minutes, and all the rotations go around him, and he rests when he's tired. That's what we need Rob to be. He hasn't been that guy. We talked about it on the postgame show last night, finally playing 29 minutes against Illinois, 30 against Minnesota, because he's playing better, and I think Archie just trusts him to play more minutes. That's what we need him to be, and whether it's health or confidence, whatever. But if he can be that guy, the other thing I do want to mention, because, look, we're all excited about Trey and Anthony and Jordan and these guys. And I think Trey especially seems like a guy who can carve out some minutes because of the way that he defends. It's important to remember the freshmen who typically play early are the 5-star guys, the elite talents like Lander. Guys like Trey and Anthony and Jordan Geronimo that are ranked more in the hundreds, 110, 120, those guys a lot of times need more. Like, look at Armand Franklin this year. That's kind of, he was ranked a little lower than those guys, but, not always ready for major minutes right off the bat. So I think, you want to see a guy like Jerome Hunter really step up in his, next year, and Race Thompson. You want to start to lean on those guys. You want these new freshmen, certainly they can compete to play, and they're going to make practice more competitive. But we get so excited about these new freshmen and what they can bring. I just think it's important to have fair expectations for what they are actually going to do in their first year, which is probably a little bit less than we think, just based on where they are. Lander is different, like Trace, like Romeo, like Yogi. He's a 5-star guy. He's going to play and contribute, even if he's a little bit up and down. So,
but look at what Jerome's done in, quote, his first year, and now you got 2 or 3 of those guys.
Well, but Jerome was also like a top 50 player, he was kind of a step up from those guys.
But my point is, you can get 12 minutes from one of those guys,
sure.
8 minutes, and I think that's going to add they don't have to play 30 minutes to be productive and bring something in.
You can let them be freshmen. Yeah.
Yes. And develop, and then see if they get more minutes down the stretch. And you can go with who's hot too. If it's Geronimo early, and then all of a sudden he hits the freshman wall. Now you got Leo. And the thing is, those kids want to compete. It seems like they want to compete and they want to win. And that's always a factor that you want to put out there. It's kind of like what we like about Armand. I think he's a winner. With his ups and downs, he's got a lot of experience, and he'll be better next year as well.
All right, so let me see. So we covered those two questions. Reclassification status, we basically said, Rob said, is it too much to hope that Jackson Davis stays 2 more years with Lander? Probably.
Let's let Trace
let him stay 1 more year
and see where his game is next fall.
Yeah, and look, let's just get through all the NBA. I know he said he's coming back, but he said he's coming back, but he almost just so that people don't panic, he almost surely is going to put his name into the draft and
find
go
out
look.
what.
And look, if an NBA team falls in love with him, things could change. You know what I mean? So let's make sure Trace comes back for next year. Let's get them on the court for 1 year together, and then we'll go from there. With a guy, again, with 5-star prospects, it's kind of a year-by-year thing, and you just have to see where it goes. Okay, so we answered all those questions. Ryan, do you want kind of the last word on Lander before we move on?
Get excited. He's really good. He's going to be really fun to watch. And he's more, Trace has been an instant impact because he's that good, and he's he's big or whatever. Lander is a guy who changes the complexion of your team because he's running the offense and he's the guy getting the ball in. And Romeo was a huge impact guy because he was the focal point of your offense, just like Trace Jackson Davis. But when you get a point guard, a top tier point guard, it makes everybody better, and it changes the complexion of how you even run your offense. So it's more like the other guys could dominate within the offense. He changes the offense, so it's a higher level of impact, I think.
The Ohio State kid that had
Carton.
played for a while.
Carton.
Yeah.
Is that kind of a Lander, or Lander better? Or
no, I think Lander's better. I think Carton's more of a
Okay.
scorer. Is more of a pure scorer, more of a combo guard. He can pass and he can lead a team, but I feel like his instincts are more that of a scoring guard than Lander. Lander feels like he can score anytime he wants, but he also is really good at setting people up and running things, and he loves to cut. He loves to backdoor cut and get a layup. I mean, it's one thing that was really impressive about
that's
him too.
Really good to hear.
But
point guards are so important.
Looking at a guy like Carton, though, kind of the production that he had, some of the elite moments, but also some of the ups and downs. But, I mean, this is a guy, obviously, before he decided to step away for the mental health issues, he's playing 21 minutes, 20 minutes, 26 minutes, 38 minutes, 29 minutes, 29 minutes. Like, that is probably not a bad template to look at for what
for sure
Lander will do. And look, DJ Carton came into Bloomington and had 7 turnovers, was throwing the ball all over the place. And Lander he'll probably have games like that because he's a freshman point guard. But you also see the impact of a guy like that. So those are, you look for guys. Think about Yogi's freshman year. Obviously, they're on a different team. Carton's freshman year. And what's helped with Ohio State when Carton was there is they had some experienced guards to help smooth out some of that. And Indiana projects to have some of that with Rob, with a senior Al Durham. Those are guys that might not be elite talents, but as juniors and seniors, they should be solid Big Ten players that can give you a little bit more consistency. And then, you let Lander kind of do his things, and, most games are going to be good, and some games they'll struggle. But overall, it's an elite talent, and, you live with some mistakes and let him grow. All right, let's hop into segment number 3 and answer some questions. So we've got 7 minutes and 2 seconds, so I need to break it about these 6:35 mark. Okay. Let's talk for 30 seconds because I need to start this at a specific time.
All right. How you guys doing?
I'm good.
How you doing?
Coach, win your game tomorrow night. Everybody wish Coach good luck. They're playing tomorrow night.
Who you playing?
Twin Lakes.
Beat them?
We lost by 5 in the regular season. Didn't play our best, and so we think we have a really good shot.
All right, here we go.
This is James Blackman Jr. I never miss an open three, and I never miss an episode of the Assembly Call. Go Hoosiers.
Thank you, James. Welcome back to the Assembly Call. I'm Jerod Morris. I'm here with Coach Brian Tonsoni and Ryan Phillips. Remember that you need to be subscribed to our email newsletter. We send out a weekly IU news roundup, even during the offseason, and after every game, we send out a detailed post-game analysis. You can text IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. That's IU to 66866 or go to assemblycall.com. All right, mailbag time. All these questions submitted via our private IU basketball discussion community, which you can learn more about at assemblycall.com/community, except for the first question, which we will get to, which was submitted inside of the chat mob in the middle of the show, because that is what this guy does, because he is very, very mediocre with when he sends his questions.
It's not that good, but it's not that bad. It's Jay's mediocre question.
It's a great question, piggybacking off of the discussion that we just had. Archie is bringing in his third class of players. In your opinion, are there identifiable traits that Archie recruits tend to possess, and if so, what are they? I'm going to go to coach first, and I bet I know what the first word is he's going to say.
Toughness.
Yep, toughness.
I think that's what he's trying to identify, and we'll see if it is true, but please let it be toughness.
Ryan, what do you think?
I think if I had to give one word, it would be multifaceted. A lot of these guys can do a number of different things. If it's a guard, he can score and pass and play defense. If it's Anthony Leal is an aggressive dive on the floor guy who can also shoot. Trey Galloway sort of can play a number of. He's been playing point guard this year at times for Covert Academies, and he can do different things. You look at Race Thompson, Jerome Hunter. I mean, the guys who are playing for them can all kind of do different things. So that's what I think he's going for. I don't know. He's a guy who's going to emphasize positionless basketball, but it's that kind of thing where guys can play on multiple spots on the floor, do multiple things, and help you in multiple ways, which is in modern basketball, it's what you got to do.
The other thing that I would say is just enthusiasm for basketball. Like a lot of the guys he brings in, they seem like just guys who love to play. Trey and Anthony and Jerome Hunter is certainly like that. Just guys who love the game. Because I think Archie hasn't won a coach like playing hard and getting up for basketball games. He wants guys that are going to bring that. And I think that comes with some of the toughness, coach, that you talked about. But just guys that have an enthusiasm to play and enthusiasm to work on their games. So, we'll see. Next year, obviously, he'll have 3 of his classes in there. So we'll see what kind of dividends it pays on the court. From Patrick, we'll direct this question to you, Ryan. When are they going to let Race take that shot at the top of the key? It's been wide open for at least the last 2 games. He can make it. Shoot the ball.
One a game. Take one a game, Race. Let it fly once a game. If they're giving you that much room, we've seen you make it before. Focus, release it off your fingertips, hold the pose on your finish, all that stuff. He can do it. We've seen him do it. He did it in high school too. We talked about that on his scouting report. Is that he's a guy who could move his shot out. So I'd be fine with one a game from there, man. I think that's right. You miss it, don't take it again. Simple rule.
But at least it lets him know that you're going to take it.
Yeah.
And
square up, man.
Yeah.
Do it. You're getting the minutes. He's not going to yank minutes from you because you miss a wide open 3.
Well, I don't know. That might be why he's not shooting it, actually, is he might get yanked if he shoots it.
I don't. At this point of the year, we need Race Thompson to win.
Yeah, I know. But definitely, players have not felt like they have green lights at certain times.
Yes, I get that.
It happens.
But he made a couple good ones earlier in the year. I think he needs to take it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, from Matt, Coach, I'll direct this one to you. A lot was made of our early season schedule. In hindsight, it appears that this was the correct strategy. Of course, how easy the early season schedule was. It appears this was the correct strategy to take this season. Do you agree with the statement, and would you continue to schedule this way moving forward?
I think the schedule depends on what kind of team you have each year, and I do think it was the right move for this team. And I think that shows that the program kind of knew what was going to happen offensively and with some of the players they had. So I think it was good. And then I have a lot of fun up here in the area of our rival, especially with our Delphi Brackets group, that Purdue fans all think that their team has the greatest strength of schedule. And Indiana's strength of schedule, per the NCAA team sheets, is better than Purdue's. What's happened, if you look at the team sheets, is Indiana's only played 4 sub-200 net teams this whole entire year, and only one sub 300. So the teams they scheduled that everyone thought were cupcakes have had pretty good years, and that has helped Indiana's strength of schedule and helped their resume. And so it wasn't as light as everyone thought it would be, and I think I've said it like 20 times each of the 5 days to those other fans, and I just enjoy that so much.
Purdue is officially the best team in the country that doesn't win.
Okay, and last question, Ryan. You have about 30 seconds to address this. This is from Rob. What is it about Michigan that allows them to tear our D up more than other teams? I do not want to face them in the Big Ten tournament.
They spread you out and they drive you right down the middle, and they can hit shots. It's pretty simple.
They have a great point guard.
And they have makes
a big difference.
And he's a point guard who can score or dish it out. And having a great point guard in college basketball is the great equalizer, I think. I think big men, having a good big man, having a good point guard are the two things that sort of change it. Obviously,
and guys who can shoot.
And shooting. But I'm assuming the point guard can shoot in this scenario. So
Ryan, it changes everything if you have the perfectly constructed roster. A great point guard, big men, and surround them with guys who can shoot. You're going to win a lot of games.
You're going to win a lot of games that way, especially if you play defense.
It's funny how that works out. Okay, Coach, one real quick question for you. You can kind of answer it with one word. Do the amount of teams from a conference have any effect on bracketology? Like, do they take into account how many teams in a conference are going to get in?
Absolutely not. The word that we've always heard is every team is an independent contractor.
That's it. We're done. No more questions.
All right, that's going to have to do it for us on this week's episode of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live, join us at assemblycall.com on Thursday nights for the live broadcast of our Assembly Call radio recording. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to Bob Thompson for producing a lot of the music that you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk with you Saturday after IU Wisconsin, after the senior speeches. Until then.
Take it from me, Max Bielfeldt. Keep your calves flexed, your elbows in, and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
Here I come. This is done, Sony.
It's an oldie.
We need a Bielfeldt right now.
Hey, I'm a
big man.
I'm a piggyback on that Michigan thing too, and this is something that I don't understand in college basketball. Teams either hedge one way, and maybe they change in game, but maybe it takes 8 games before they decide to change the way they hedge a ball screen. Why can't you hedge differently depending on who's coming off the ball screen? Like Xavier Simpson can't hit a 3 to save his life. He needs 19 seconds to load it up from his waist. So go under that ball screen instead of high hedging with the great passer, and you got then the other shooters. That's something that does
that depend on your roster? I mean, you got to trust guys to execute a scouting report.
Okay, and I hope no Twin Lakes fans are listening, but we do different things. We do different things based on who has the ball in different scenarios. So I'm not going to say what the game plan is for tomorrow night, but we do it in high school and expect our guys to know when it's this person and this person either screening or back screening or ball screening or whatever. We're going to do action A, B, or C. And we expect it of our guys. And we complain and film when they don't do it.
Good luck tomorrow, Coach. I got to go eat dinner, but good luck.
Right. Thank
Rooting for you. Waiting on the result tomorrow.
Give our best to Madeline.
I will.
Go drink some
balsamic vinegar.
Balsamic vinegar, yeah. All right, guys.
Not as good as tiramisu, but pretty good.
Good scouting report, Ryan.
Thanks, man.
It's good stuff, man. All right, Coach, you have time for a couple more quick questions?
I sure do.
Okay. Let's see. We got JD's. We got Rob's. Oh, this is going to be an easy one from Bill, I think. Joey Brunk has a terribly jerky hesitation in his free throw form, and it seems to be getting worse instead of better. Is it appropriate or even possible to correct this motion this late in the schedule, or would it be preferable to wait till the offseason? To a lesser degree, this could apply to Trace as well. That's got to be an emphatic no. You would never change a guy's shot in season.
No. Right now it's about confidence, and you don't want to get in their head so that the other parts of their game that they do well, you don't want people thinking too much. And yes, it needs to be fixed. And sometimes you don't even fix it in the off season, because especially if the shot's going in. But to fix someone's shot at this age, when you're a junior and senior in college, takes a lot of breaking it down and then a lot of fixing. And are you better at working on footwork and skills and strength and other things with the time and where you need him to shoot? Yes, free throws are very important. I understand that. but again, that it takes, muscle memory is so funny to break down. It's like your golf swing. Everyone out there plays golf. You go to the instructor and you hit the ball well on the range, and then you go back out, and after 3 or 4 beers and hole number 13, you're back to the old cranky shot that you had, and all that money you spent on lessons is wasted. So
swinging your golf club into your bag like a baseball bat,
yeah,
the stuff that we all do.
Good. It's hard to do. In the high school level, I've decided not to mess with kids' shots. Now, most of the time, they're the ones who are going in. And then the ones who aren't going in, you just tell them to be screeners.
Yeah.
Or go in the pep band or something,
Yeah. I mean, it takes a real commitment to change your shot. I mean, you see guys do it some in the NBA when that's essentially their job and they can just work on it. And I mean, you have to get so many reps to change the muscle memory. So
exactly.
You absolutely would not do it during a season.
Nope.
You might, Ryan talked about it with, Demezi back when we did Demezi's scouting report. Do you need to change some things with his shot? And maybe what you would do with a college guy is if you're going to redshirt him and he's not going to play a ton, like even his redshirt freshman year. Now you've got 2 years to change his shot out of the view of everybody before he's going to play in real games. Maybe you would do it then. But a guy who's already playing big minutes, I don't even think, you would want to change anybody's shot who you project to be a player for next year, because you want them in the offseason perfecting what they have, not breaking everything down.
I always told my assistants that no one talks to our players, about shooting except the head coach. Because everyone has an idea on what a shooter needs to do, and then all of a sudden the poor kid's here and keep your elbow in, or no, it's your hand placement, or no, hold your follow through. It's going to be one consistent. If you have something to suggest about player A's shooting, come tell me, and then I'll go watch him in a drill, and then I will communicate it to him. And it wasn't that I didn't trust the assistants. It's just it's such a mental thing, and little things, shoulder going forward or backwards, or just your footwork, that you start thinking about one thing and then something else goes wrong, and it's just a confusing thing. So we always had, I always told assistants, just say, hey, shoot with confidence, or something common that wouldn't really get into the mind of a shooter. It's tricky.
But it's amazing. Shooting is such an interesting thing because, by the time you get to college, especially if you've grown up playing, it is so ingrained. I texted you guys. I went and played basketball for the first time. I was on a basketball court, playing, it was the first time in 5 years. And I stepped out there. I am out of shape. There are a lot of things I can't do. I could not play. I could not guard a chair. I probably couldn't go up and down the court 2 or 3 times without, keeling over. I could still shoot it. You know what I mean? I stepped out, went right around the horn, made all the threes. Stepped up, and I was making 80% of my free throws. It's
Coach Wood.
Yeah, well, because I just, I grew up shooting, and I haven't put any focused practice on it since high school, but it is just burned in there, man. Put me on a basketball court with a ball, and I can just go make some shots. So to try to change something that is so ingrained that you can step away for 5 years and still step right back on and make them, that's, that has to be such an intentional thing to do, and you got to really know what you're doing. So
for you dads out there, when you have young kids at age 6, 7, 8, or 9, get them a smaller ball.
Yeah.
And get them a smaller basket, 8 to 9 feet, and just make sure their form is perfect. And then don't paint a 3-point circle on your driveway, and get them to love the 15-footer, because once that form is ingrained and you get them about 9, 10, 11, and they have the right form, then they're going to be able to shoot for a long time. So
because the point is, you don't want to develop bad habits heaving the ball when you're not strong enough to shoot it the right way. Yep. Oh man, I could talk about shooting forever. It's the greatest.
I always told my sons, you got to get good at shooting, because no one ever gets in the paper for passing or guarding, and then no chicks will go out with you if you're not in the paper. So it's all about shooting. You don't need to defend. My boys didn't defend. They just scored. I had to find the nicest looking lady.
That's good advice, Coach. Good advice. From Bill, what is one improvement or major step forward that we have seen Indiana starters and most active bench players take this year that you could see them likely possibly bringing into postseason play? This is the last question.
Yeah, I'm going to say that they're handling adversity a lot better. This team seemed to drop its head and pout an awful lot and give up, big runs. And I think that's – and even in their recent losses at Illinois and at Purdue and the ups and downs within the games at home, you have not seen that kind of lack of effort and lack of, focus because one end of the court is not going well. And that's going to bode well in the Big Ten tournament. You're going to get your best shot. You're not going to necessarily win it. And in the NCAA tournament, you're going to have a chance to win games if you don't just give up on yourselves as players and give up on your coaching staff and all that because things are going tough. You got to be a little tough-minded to overcome adversity. We talked to our guys into high school. Your first 4 or 5 minutes of the sectional are going to be nerve-wracking. We didn't talk to them about that. We said, hey, you're going to handle some adversity. There's going to be a 6 or 8-point run by the other team. You've got to be strong at that point in order to persevere, And we do talk a little bit about handling adversity because it happens in a game. The game of basketball is a game of runs, and your winners handle it. And I like that, even though we've lost some games that you don't want to lose. I think that's what we wanted back in December when we started losing some games, or January when we started losing some games. I think that's been the improvement I've enjoyed the most.
Yeah, on a macro level, I definitely agree with you. I think, as we talked about on the post-game show last night, I have questions about how ready our defense is actually for the postseason. I still think it's a little bit too leaky, and I think to play the way Archie wants to play, this needs to be, a great to elite defense, which it's not yet, and there's some spurts in there that are concerning, but I don't want to focus there because I do actually like some of the things I'm seeing offensively, especially the last 2 games. Purdue was awful, but the last 80 minutes, there's been a lot of really good offense. And the things, Coach, that I've seen that I've really liked is they're getting Trace the ball on the move more, not where he's just static on the block, and he's better when he's on the move. I think Rob is being more aggressive driving to the basket. He's not just waiting around to be a catch and shoot guy. He's really, driving and being more aggressive. And the biggest thing is what they're doing with Al Durham, which I love. And we talk so much on this show, asking for them to set some screens for shooters and asking for Al to be aggressive. And the last 2 games, you're really seeing both those things. Run him off screens. You're seeing him, actually read the screen. It's amazing watching a guy read a screen. He'll either fade back to the 3-point line or he'll curl right around it. There was a possession in the Minnesota game. He goes around the screen. He fades the first time, doesn't have a shot, passes it, gets another screen. The guy thinks he's going to fade, so he just curls right around it, gets into the lane. I think that's where he had the little dump-off pass. And so seeing Indiana run those sets and seeing him be aggressive and actually use the screens the right way, they're putting him in a position to succeed, which is either be a catch-and-shoot guy or get the ball on the move going downhill. And that's smart. That's putting him in a position to succeed. And, those to me, those are your 3 most important offensive players. Trace, Al, and Rob, with Devontae obviously being the big X factor and Jerome being a bit of an X factor. But if you get that from those 3 guys, you can have a functioning offense. And, if you combine a functioning offense with a good but occasionally inconsistent defense, you're not going to make a Final Four, but you can go win a couple Big Ten tournament games and, win a game or 2 in the NCAA tournament. So if that stuff on offense continues, I think this is a team that can, that can score some points. Not, again, they're not going to be elite, but they're more multi-dimensional and just functioning and coherent on offense, Well,
and the most improvement was needed on offense.
Yes.
And I do agree with you. The defense is good, not great where it needs to be, but it's 31st, 32nd, something like that. It's improved. And the last 6 games, it's kept Indiana in games. And then the last 7-8 minutes were really dominant defense last night to put the game away. So, and they're changing some things. And so, after the Michigan game, I started sending Archie emails with the link to the show because of all the advice that we have. And he started different hedging and he's different rotations. He's starting to use timeouts. I mean, I really appreciate Coach Miller taking the time to watch and then put into play some of the things that you and Andy and Ryan and I are suggesting. And we should get paid for this.
Did you see Archie's answer last night when they asked him about the starting lineup? Because the way that the guy phrased the question, I don't know who asked the question, but the way they phrased the question was, some people have been questioning your starting lineup and what you're doing with the starting lineup. And Archie's like, he's like, basically, who's been asking the questions? Have you been asking the questions? Basically, like, the point being, like, who are the idiots questioning what I'm doing with my team? Which, Fair enough. But on a serious note, because we didn't talk about this, did you listen to his answer?
I have not had a chance. I got home at the tail end of the game, and then today, doing some bracketology and film study for sectional and practice. And
so this will be the last time we talk about it, because I know you got to go. But the answer, it was a great answer, because we have talked about this a lot. And he essentially said, look, especially this late in the season, you're not going to change the starting lineup because you might lose guys, and we're not going to do that. And so if you're going to change the starting lineup either in the second half or, even for the starters, you want to change it moving toward a strength rather than moving away from a weakness. It's essentially saying, if you kind of read between the lines, like a guy like Race Thompson would just have to absolutely bowl you over and give you no choice to bring in Joey Brunk. But even then, you're going to need Joey Brunk, so you don't want to lose him, which is, look, there's more psychological culture type stuff going on here with what I do with my starting lineup than, some yahoos on a post-game show are probably going to consider, which is, fair enough. We see about 15% of the full context of these decisions and try and give our opinions on them. What I liked about his answer is I think sometimes we've thought, hey, Archie's just stubborn and doesn't want to change. But what you saw there, and we should have assumed this anyway, the guy's he's an elite basketball coach. Now is he like, in the top 10 in the country? Maybe not yet, but he's, one of the best basketball coaches in the country out of all the people coaching basketball. There's a philosophy there. And you like to know that things aren't just being done by default. There's consideration, but there's a philosophy that is being followed. And whether you agree or disagree with the philosophy, it makes me feel better, again, to know that there is one. And again, should have assumed that, but it's always comforting to have your coach just spell it out so you can be on the same page with him and know. And I just feel better having heard that answer. So
and that's a good reminder for all of us that there's more to a basketball or an athletic program than just the X's and O's and what we see on game night. There's what goes on in the locker room, the meeting rooms, and sometimes you honor some things with lineups and playing time that maybe don't make X and O's sense to the common viewer that doesn't know what else is going on. My best year ever, we won the regional, and we're one of 4 teams left in the state, Jerod, and we had a 5'9" point guard, and we were going up against Lewis Cass, undefeated, number 1 team in the state. Their smallest guy was 6'3", 6'4", all the way up, and they were undefeated, and we were 15-10 or 15 and something. We made a run in the tournament. And in order to try to get to the state championship, our assistants were like, should we put our 6'3" guy off the bench into the starting lineup to match up with them? And I said, no, this kid went into the starting lineup at Christmas time, and he's the reason we turned our 3-8 season around to win. Now, minutes might be diminished, but I can't, after winning a sectional and winning a regional with that starting lineup, make a change, because that could do more harm in that game than playing him for 2 or 3 minutes, coming up with a strategy to survive, and then some other things. And that kid was a tremendous reason why we won all those games and had the best season I've ever had as a head coach, and 1 game away from the state championship. And he played a lot of minutes. He had to play some minutes in that game as well. But that was a bond that young man and I had, and to this day we have, that he wasn't going to come out of the starting lineup simply because it might have been a matchup thing. And then it was my job to communicate if he's going to get a little bit less minutes. But those things happen in a program at all levels, and it's a good reminder what he said and then what you just shared, that we get caught up in the X's and O's sometimes as a casual fan.
And it's not necessarily to say that the way Archie's talking about doing it is right for everybody, because some coaches, some programs, the culture there, the philosophy may just be, hey, we're going to do matchups. Coach Knight did that some. But Archie is clearly building culture around starting matters. And so if he sits Joey Brunk on the bench, Joey Brunk's going to take that as like, oh, man, I am really doing something wrong because of what it means. And so context is everything. And Archie has shown more recently that if things aren't going well in the first half, he'll make a change for the second half. But that's why I love hearing those explanations, because it makes it all make sense.
Quick thought too is this team needed toughness and work ethic and togetherness, and Joey Brunk brought it from the day one, and more so than anyone from what we're hearing. And that's your dude. And he's, you asked about the one word about recruiting. That's Joey Brunk. his toughness, and those kinds of things. And, you're saying to the team, this is a guy who's at practice early. This is a guy who lifts weights hard. This is a guy who won the belt. This is the guy who did this. These are the kind of guys that I'm going to play with, I'm going to go to war with. And it's hard to replace a guy like that when he's struggling because he still represents everything you believe in as a coach. You're going to keep that guy. So hopefully that's the reason. And you got to applaud Archie, and we're playing better basketball, so it's working.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Archie. Hey, I'll call you later, dude.
I have a mad crush on Archie Miller. And
our conversations, Coach Archie, have been really good lately. Appreciate it.
I don't know how much money I would pay to just do one of these shows and have a camera on Archie's face to watch the facial expressions when we would question something that they're doing. Just to see that reaction would be,
dude, I'm telling you,
hilarious.
I'll be honest with you. It'll piss him off because it pisses us off when anyone questions what we do.
Totally would.
I mean, it does. You ask your dad. Your dad was a coach. Anyone who questions, even if we admit we make a mistake, we should have guarded this ball screen a different way, this ball screen a different way. It's not because we didn't try to make the right decision. And then, usually it's some. I won't even give you another drop, but it's usually somebody who played back when they had peach baskets that are telling us, what we need to do. Yeah, Archie would not like it, but
it's all right. When I go to the fantasy camp, I'm going to tell him that we were some of the people questioning his starting lineups. As a preface to how much I appreciated his answer about it, but just I would love to see this because sometimes, man, the face that he gets sometimes when there's questions asked that kind of question a premise of how he's coaching the team. The look of just what are you talking about? Why are you asking me this question?
Man, I tell you, getting media passes with Delphi Bracketology, you can definitely tell who the winning coach is and who the losing coach is. It doesn't matter if it's at Mackey Arena or Champaign where I've been or Big Ten at the Crossroads Classics. Hey, the coaches who win, they'll laugh and joke and talk a little longer. And those coaches that aren't, they're ticked at everything. What did you see? I saw the game. I saw we lost. I mean, it's crazy, hilarious. And I've been there, too. You don't want to talk to us media types when you lose a game. Come on, man.
Izzo's probably the most extreme of them all.
Oh, yeah.
He is. All right, Coach, go get some rest. Go win your game tomorrow night. Hopefully West Lafayette wins, too. And then we've got I don't know who I'm going to root for in that game.
Man. Yeah, and you called us Mark Turgeon. I want this out on the podcast, too. Delphi Bracketology is not Mark Turgeon. I almost protested the show tonight. You think it's Mark Turgeon? You think what we do is Mark Turgeon?
You know where that came from, right?
I think we're 13th in the state.
Yes.
And they're 13th in Ken Palm.
Yes. Andy's 11th, so he's Kelvin Sampson, and you guys are 13th, so you're Mark Turgeon. Sometimes it's fun to do, and sometimes it works out better than others. That one was, I thought, especially funny. However, the drop of Delphi Bracketology is not Mark Turgeon is definitely going to be.
Hey, if we hadn't had a bad year last year, we still would have been number one, and then we would have been Kansas, and then I would have been fired because of the stripper poles in high school and all that stuff, and Snoop Dogg smoking at the thing. I would have been fired. So I guess I'd rather be Mark Turgeon than Kansas.
Yo, this is Sneep Dio Double Dizzle.
All right, folks. How long can we keep Coach online here? Because the drops just get better the longer Coach stays on.
Dude, I love this. I love the post game show.
This isn't even the post game show.
Or the post show. Mrs. Tonsoni loves it too because it keeps me awake. The longer you keep me on here, then the more time she gets to read or do whatever librarians do. Hey, on a serious note, Jerod, and I just want to Mrs. Tonsoni in our English department do something that's really incredible. It's called This I Believe. Every student writes a This I Believe essay. We pick 4 winners every class, 16 young people. We have a spoken poetry segment, some music and video submission, and really we believe in young people at IU basketball, but young people can do incredible things if you let them have some chance to state their opinions and creativity, both as coaches and as teachers. Kudos to my wife and her fellow English department. And I know there's lots of great things that go on across the country with education, but we were at the Opera House tonight, and I was moved to tears hearing some of the stories and the adversity that our young people have overcome here at Delphi. And we need to get, I'll end this, but young people are pretty awesome, and they deal with a lot of stuff, and they can do some great things. So believe in your educators and believe in young people, because they're incredible. It was a very emotional night, 2 hours worth of just incredible belief statements by some young people, and it just makes me all fired up to keep being positive about the Hoosiers and some other things. So just
and what you do with your students at Delphi Bracketology, which is, you could look at it as like silly, we're ranking college basketball teams, but as you know, it's about so much more than that. The experience, the critical thinking, all the other stuff that they're doing. So, the community that you guys have built around that. So you're doing amazing work. And I know you do. I mean, I see some of the tweets sometimes that come from your students and your ex-students. I mean, you've clearly built some long-time relationships, which are...
I need to let you go, but I got a tweet from a former player of mine. He goes, my morning consists of humorous read through Delphi Bracket's Twitter feed to see what all the idiots have to say about why you haven't seeded their team. It's awesome. I really appreciate being an educator. It's a frustrating time across the country being an educator, but the kids are the reason. But yeah, we had to block someone from Delphi Bracketology for using language, or Twitter for using some bad language towards our kids. But
good. That's uncalled for. Dominic said you guys should have a friendly wager if Western plays West Lafayette in the sectional final. We don't need that. That's hard because, I love West Lafayette. My old coach is still there, Coach Wood, so I obviously want to see them do well, but, we want to see Coach win, so I don't know. I wouldn't bet on it. That's one of those impossible games, How do you pick? That's like if, it's not exactly the same, but like when parents are watching, two kids play against each other, like, just want to see a great game, But
man, if we knew that matchup was for sure, I mean, we got to take care of business. We'd fly you guys in, do a little post game.
Oh man,
interview your old coach, and you'd really have some drops if we didn't win it. Because I'd be like Archie Miller. No, Jerod, we didn't mean to not block out in that last play. Yeah, we didn't coach that, Jerod.
I'd love to see Coach Wood's face if he ever heard me criticize someone for defense or. All you did was shoot it, Morris. Come on, don't be a hypocrite. All right, Coach.
All right, I got some bracketology stuff to work on.
That's right. Get a good
so
bracket
I'm not
out.
Mark Turgeon for crying out loud.
Hey,
I'm motivated more than ever.
Get those rankings
I ain't no
up.
Mark Turgeon. I know Mark Turgeon.
You are not.
I ain't no Mark Turgeon.
You are not Mark
Neither
Turgeon.
are my kid. Yeah.
You are not.
All right.
All right,
Love you,
everybody.
Jerod.
Thanks for being here. Great talking to you, Coach. And
man.
Good luck tomorrow night. Oh, Coach is gone. See you, everybody. See you Saturday.